Greetings. This is Justin Allen with the Elite Nurse Practitioner. Welcome to the Elite Nurse Practitioner Show, podcast dedicated to nurse practitioner entrepreneurism and achieving financial freedom, where I talk directly with nurse practitioners who need help. Listen up, our market is saturated. Jobs can be scarce. We are underpaid. We are undervalued. We are taken advantage of by the sharks within the healthcare system, and frankly, screw that. I'm sick of it, and it's time for a change. And listen, I'm here to help make that happen. We are powerful. We can forge a path where we are in control of our career and ultimately our financial and personal well-being. You do not need to submit to healthcare administrators and your doctor overlords. You do not have to take a measly salary. You do not have to work 50 to 60 hours a week. There is a different way, and I'm here to show you that path. This podcast is raw and unfiltered. I have not talked to the nurse practitioners in this podcast prior to the call outside of an email exchange to schedule the episode. What you're about to listen to is a consultation session between a nurse practitioner and myself. It is real, it is unscripted, it is unplanned, and I have no idea what we're going to talk about. Anything and everything can happen during our conversation. The nurse practitioners in these episodes are struggling with an issue in their professional or financial life, and they have reached out to me for help. My goal is to help the nurse practitioner with actionable advice that will enhance and improve their professional, business, and financial life. My other goal is to hopefully help my nurse practitioner sisters and brothers build a more productive, powerful, and free life. So I hope the content and information within these podcast episodes does just that. All right, onto the episode. Hello, everyone. Today we'll be talking to Bridgette, who is a family nurse practitioner. Currently, she owns her own part-time virtual practice where she focuses on weight loss while also working part-time at a telemedicine HRT practice. She's been open for 8 months and is doing well. She also just started her own clinical research company and is hoping to have this operational by the end of the year. She states she could be doing better, but is going through a non-compete battle that is stalling her entrepreneurial journey. Hey, Bridgette, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thanks for hopping on here. So, bring us up to speed. You got a lot of things going on here. It looks like you're dealing with some stupid legal battle or something. So, hell, just bring us up to speed with what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been a nurse practitioner now for 3 years. I was a nurse before that for 9 years total. I was working for a clinical research company as an RN when I got my APRN. And then I transitioned into a family practice role with one of what I thought was kind of one of my close friends and a mentor. He's a friend of my father's, to keep that kind of, in mind, because it's important throughout, but they go play sports together often and hang out a lot. He was my mentor basically when I was doing my clinicals. I was with him for a full year, and then I started working for him for a year. When I signed my contract, naive me, I can't encourage people to look at your contract and have it reviewed by a lawyer enough, because I just thought, oh my goodness, I'm a new grad. Everybody says the market's so saturated. I'm never going to get a contract. I just need to take what comes to me. And so I signed the contract, and basically it said, you work for us for a year, and then you have to complete 3 months after. You have to give us basically a 90-day notice, and you couldn't put it in before your year ended. So it locked you into a year and 3 months instead of just a year. I got my autonomous practice shortly after that. I left him in February of this year. I got my autonomous license, opened my own weight loss clinic, and I've been kind of flying under the radar because I also opened up a clinical research company in June with 5 other partners. He ended up finding out about this, states that I breached my non-compete because it's within 50 miles of his location, and is now trying to shut that down completely. So now that leaves me kind of just focusing more so on the weight loss. Technically, the clinical research isn't even open yet. We're still under construction, so there's really nothing to shut down at the moment. But
Okay. So you were working for this guy in a clinical research capacity?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, so you were working with this guy doing what?
Okay, so he does family practice. 7 months after I started working for him and signed that contract, he opened up his own clinical research company, but it's under a different LLC, and I never signed a contract to work with him under his clinical research.
Then how is this valid?
I when I was just talking to an attorney, they were like, you can sue a ham sandwich. It doesn't have to be right or reasonable, but if they're trying to, drag you through and bankrupt you because they don't want you to be successful, that's just what they'll do. This is what these people with multi-million dollars try to do to people just starting up because they think you're taking a piece of their pie. It's terrible.
Wow. I just don't know how that could be held up in court. It's a completely separate business, completely separate LLC. You didn't sign with that LLC. Like, I don't see how this could be held up.
I don't really either. That's kind of want to pick your brain about it and see kind of what you thought about non-competes in general.
Right. I mean, in general, from, a lot of people that I've talked to, who own practices and businesses and whatnot, oftentimes non-competes are difficult to actually hold up in court. Like, they usually just throw them out. And in this kind of case, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, okay, but I do dabble in this stuff. It's kind of a dorky little pursuit of mine, but I don't see how this could hold up at all. It's a completely separate business. You were not doing clinical research with this guy. You were doing primary care, for heaven's sake. How is that any kind of competition with him with another business? Like,
Yeah.
what? How does that hold up? Like, a judge sits there and looks at this and like, are you kidding me? What?
I pray you're right on that. I mean, I feel the same way too. I feel like it's kind of a home run on my part, but I just wonder how far he's going to drag it and how many court fees and lawyer costs and things like that. Because, just starting up, I've only been in business for about 8 months now. And I'm bringing in probably about $6,000 a month in profit.
That's the weight
everything's
loss
done.
business.
Yes, that's weight
Right.
loss.
That's good. So he's not suing you over that, though. He's suing you over the clinical research.
Correct. But I would love to grow my weight loss business, but now I'm petrified to put anything online because essentially how we found out about that clinical research company was by one of my partners making our Facebook and Instagram, and then they requested him to follow, and I'm like, why?
Yeah, they stirred the hornet's nest there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did. So, oof.
Yeah. The non-competes for 50 miles, you said?
It is.
50 miles. Okay. And the weight loss is telemed?
It is.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, you're not seeing any patients within 50 miles of that office, right? So you're good to go.
Well, technically, I only live about 10 miles away from that office. So, I mean, if you
But you're not seeing patients within 50 miles of his office. It's not competition. You're seeing patients elsewhere.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Right? Correct?
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So I don't think I'd worry too much about that. Just verify addresses and do mile radius kind of things. Well, how long is this non-compete? Like, how long is it for? Is it for 2 years, 3 years? I mean, what is it?
No, just 1 year.
Just 1 year. And it expires when?
So that's the other thing I'm a little iffy on too, because like I was saying earlier, he made me sign a year, but then I had to give him 90 days. So technically my last day was February 20th, but the day my contract ended was November 16th. So in my mind, I think the non-compete ends November 16th. He's saying it's February
Of 2022?
of this coming February, my non-compete will end is when he's saying, but I believe it's this year, November.
Of 2023. I gotcha.
Mhm.
So don't open the doors to your clinical research company until February, whatever.
Boy, but I have 5 other partners who are ready to go. So now I'm thinking I have to take my name off of literally everything and start it up again. Maybe I don't know. Is that a thing? Have you ever heard of people writing up a contract to get back on an LLC after their non-compete?
Sure, you can do that if you want.
Yeah.
You can always, take an equity stake into whatever, right?
There's something that expressly prohibits that in a contract too. It's you can't have more than 5% stake. I mean, it's a 20-page contract. I know. It's something I wish I'd known a long time.
Right. But it's still that year though. After that, I don't see how anything can be enforceable. I mean, it's one of those things in my opinion, if you give it the time and then it expires, I mean, how the hell can any of that be held up? Right. With your telemedicine practice, you're not seeing any patients within 50 miles of his practice. So whatever, after February, you can see patients right next door. Who cares? Right. And then, after February, this clinical research company, it's outside of the term. I just feel like that you just waited a little bit. I don't see how any of this could be enforceable at all. And like I said before, non-competes are hardly enforceable anyways. What did the lawyers say exactly about it? Did he say this is enforceable?
Oof. Okay. So before I even left his office, I went to the lawyer because I was the last thing I want to do is breach my non-compete when I was opening my weight loss clinic. I said, I've always dreamed of being an entrepreneur. This is what I want to do. Am I going to get in trouble for this? The straightforward answer was no, non-competes don't hold up in court. Essentially what you said.
Okay.
Then this guy, when I went back to him, wanted $30,000 as a retainer for this clinical research stuff. So I was like, no, I don't think so. So I ended up going with another guy. He basically said to look in the contract, there's different verbiage. And sometimes these physicians, when they're writing these contracts, they write them strictly for physicians. So there's a lot of verbiage in my contract that say physician, physician, physician. He's like, you might just have this whole thing voided because it says physician and not provider. It also says in there too that if you're treating patients, it keeps using the word treating, but in clinical research, you don't treat patients. I mean, they get drug from the sponsor, you make sure they're okay, they go home. I'm not giving them high blood pressure medicine or, anything like that.
So it sounds like there's so many different workarounds here.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's so stressful though, because you never know, like with these people with multi-million dollars, how far they're willing to go to see your demise.
Yeah, fair enough. But I mean, at the same time, they look at it too, and the money that they're spending, it's just like, granted, they want to be vindictive and be an asshole about it, sure, but at the same time, it just comes down to money. And then if they're spending a bunch of money and they know they're never going to win or anything with it, like, why would they just keep pursuing it?
Yeah.
I just
Yeah, I
don't see
know.
why they would because they know it's a losing battle. I don't know. That's just my opinion about it. I mean, I think eventually they're just gonna be like, hell with it. This isn't worth our time.
I really hope so. They're suing for $30,000 to $50,000 in damages. So
Big whoop de doo. It's not even that much money. I mean, it's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. Okay, I'm not saying $50,000 is not a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but like for something like this, it's really not that much money.
I mean, fair, but you're just starting up and you're trying to start multiple businesses, and that really, really sets you back.
Well, sure, but there's always ways. You can appeal it and you can just extend it out. And, you don't have to pay $1 for years, especially if you set up things like trusts and whatnot. I mean, if you're poor on paper, then what the hell is there to take from you?
That's very true. Very, very true. Well, I guess then my question to you would be, with all of this going on, wanting to be more successful with the weight loss clinic, because, clinical research was going to be my bread and butter, and I was eventually going to sell off the weight loss clinic. But now I feel like I need to do some more advertisement and spend some more time on that first endeavor.
Sure.
How would you advertise it without kind of ratting yourself out, I guess?
Well, I mean, if you're doing it out of state, then it's not an issue whatsoever. But I mean, okay, well, first and foremost, so you're making $6,000 a month profit off this little part-time telemed weight loss thing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations. I mean, how many hours a week are you spending on this?
Uh, you know, I
Average.
really love my 5 days weekends. So I typically only do it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I maybe spend 20 hours a week on it.
So 20 hours a week. So you're working 80 hours a month, probably less than that, honestly, for $6,000 total. So I mean, that's pretty good money, after it's all said and done. It's not
I
bad.
No, no, it's not bad. It could be better, but it's not bad.
Could be better, right? But I mean, it's not bad though. I mean, it really isn't. So how to advertise and kind of protect yourself here? Are you only advertising locally right now, or is this more word of mouth? Kind of what's going on?
Most of all of my patients have been word of mouth. Once they
Really?
find out kind of the program, they're in it to win it. I've had them
Wow.
all for pretty much 8 months now, and they just keep referring and referring and referring. It's been great.
Okay. So you got two options here. You could either just kind of keep milking it right now as you are, word of mouth, that kind of thing, until all this blows over. February comes around, then you start advertising, more in the area. So that way you're seeing patients right now outside the 50-mile radius. But like after February or whatever, you can start seeing them, in your local area as well. Not have to worry about it. So there is that. So you could just wait a little bit and kind of just keep milking this and just let it kind of just grow organically and not really worry too much about growing it right now.
Mhm.
Or you could spend a little bit of that $6,000 that you're making and kind of just reinvest that back into marketing your business into other areas, either in the same state or even get a license in, maybe another state or something and start, marketing there. You can market very, very specifically, very specific areas. So even with like Google ads or Facebook ads, social media ads, those kinds of things, you can basically limit to who sees those ads in a very specified area. So, you could be 50 miles outside of where you're at in another county or a specific city.
That's true. I didn't think about that too much. I did take your classes and all, and I did watch that, but that was 8 months ago. I probably should do
Sure.
a refresher on that.
Well, yeah, definitely watch the marketing course again. But I mean, you could really be really specific here on where you target this stuff. So that's really not that big of a deal. It's pretty easy.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Like with my men's health clinic, we do some telemedicine too. And so I have ads out there on Google and they are very specific to certain, metropolitan areas throughout my state. And so I don't want to advertise to some podunk little, nowhere town with 200 people. That's a waste of my money. So
Mhm.
instead, I really target the bigger outlying cities throughout my state and also kind of more the medium sized ones as well. And it tends to work.
Okay, that's good. When were you thinking about hiring somebody else in your practice? When was it when you made so much money, or did you just say I'm really overwhelmed and I need help?
A little bit of both. I think the biggest contributing factor with that was time and
Yeah.
just pulling my hair out. I always tell people that, if you're booking out 2 to 4 weeks in advance, it's time to hire another provider.
Mhm.
Patients nowadays, they want convenience. They want it now. They do not want to wait. And if they have to wait, they're going to go elsewhere. So that's kind of just my train of thought with that. I mean, if you're scheduling out more than 2 to 3 weeks, it's probably time to, hire another NP. And you can just hire them on a very part-time basis too.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I mean, I could probably open up a Monday, Friday kind of thing, but working for
That's
yourself is real nice to have 5-day
all
weekends.
right. If you want a 5-day weekend, keep the 5-day weekend. I don't blame you. Like, you're the boss. You do what the hell you want. You know what I mean? If that's what you want, keep that.
Great.
But for you to maintain a standard of living or even increase your standard of living and really start investing money in that kind of stuff, you're really going to need to bring on someone else. They're, working a couple other days and they're generating a little bit of a passive income for you. That's really the only way to do it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to. My big avenue was going to be clinical research. You're talking, even one contract, you're making at least $25,000. It's crazy. And I mean, you can do multiple contracts in a month, even if clinical research hasn't been talked about. I mean, that is such a huge avenue for nurse practitioners to make extra money on the side. Even doing that before I opened this clinic, still with clinical research. The base pay on that is usually about 150 to 175 an hour. And you really go in there, you assess the patient, sign charts, and you're done. You walk out, you get 150 to 75 an hour.
Wow. Sounds like maybe a good course idea.
It is throwing hints out there.
Yeah. Well, let's chat about that after we get off here. Just FYI, folks. Yeah, maybe we'll get something out like that. But okay, so yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's great money. I mean, I knew an NP that did clinical research. Oh, geez, this was when I was like an RN. He worked in the ER, but he would just like show up for like random shifts here and there. It was more PRN. You know what I mean? He was like, dude, he's like, I make my money doing clinical research. I own my little research company. We focus on fibromyalgia and stuff like that. He's like, I make a killing.
Yes. I mean, honestly, picking up, that's what helped me start Fluid or, my business. I started that with $5,000 that I made from clinical research in like 2 weeks and then
Wow.
up and running just from that.
Yeah. And it's probably really not that hard. I mean, you just kind of just follow a basic model, right? And determine what kind of research it's going to be and what, how you're going to collect the data and whatnot.
Yeah. And honestly, it's not really you doing the majority of it as a provider. Basically, you just get a protocol and it says exactly what you have to do. Sometimes, there's skin biopsies, sometimes there's joint aspiration, all kinds of different things that you can be doing. They're mostly like procedure based or even just basic assessment, like the COVID vaccines, for example. Those went on for 3 years and they needed providers just to go in and say, hey, are you having any adverse effects? No? Okay. Have a great day.
Interesting. Okay. So you're not really designing the clinical research. You're just more or less getting the contract and just doing the clinical component of it.
Exactly.
Oh, what a piece of cake. Cause I don't know about you, but doing my IRB and my master's thesis and all that crap, I couldn't do that shit for a living. There's no way.
No, I mean, it's not the most interesting thing. I won't lie, but it's lucrative.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're just doing the clinical component and that's it, I mean, that sounds like a piece of cake.
It's excellent for a side income. If anybody's out there and listening, find yourself some clinical research, little side hustle, and get your money in like one day.
Yeah. All right. I hope everyone's enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a quick break to thank everyone listening and also give a big thank you to all of my social media followers and email subscribers. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to our email list at www.elitenp.com and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Email subscribers will receive updates on new weekly podcast episodes, multiple weekly articles we publish, new courses, and everything else related to helping you succeed. Remember, all Elite Nurse Practitioner courses are designed to help you build a niche practice, increase your financial strength, and to break free from the rat race. If I can break free and then other countless nurse practitioners can break free, then so can you. Additionally, please share this podcast with your other nurse practitioner sisters and brothers out there. The more NPs that venture out on their own, the stronger our profession will become. Now, let's get back to the episode. But yeah, so in terms of the weight loss, though, I mean, the marketing aspect of it, if you really want to grow it, you're going to have to just really find some areas and just throw some ads out there and just really kind of keep an eye on the results and see where the little gold mines are, so to speak. The medium-sized towns really seem to be great places to advertise these kinds of services because there's usually not a whole lot of services there. So, just meet the demand, basically. Just get on Google Maps and just start doing some research, type in weight loss clinics and just start going around Google Maps, looking at, various places and see where, if there's competition or not. If there really isn't a whole lot of competition, that's where you advertise. So, I mean, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, it doesn't sound bad. I do charge running this by you. So I have like a 75-day program and then I have a monthly program. My costs for like the monthly program, we're talking semaglutide because,
Okay.
that's the bread and butter essentially.
Right.
My cost for the semaglutide for a month's worth is about $110 and I charge $350 a month for that.
Yep.
And then I have a 75-day program and it's just shy of 3 months, covers, all their medications, syringes, alcohol, and then biweekly consults with me. And then I actually have a dietitian I work with as well. So they meet with them about every 3 weeks to go through the dietitian. And that one's $925 and includes blood work too.
That's the total price for the 75 days?
Yes.
Okay. And what's your net profit on that?
I make about $475 off of that.
Okay. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, you're still hitting well over that $100, a month market profit that I, talk about. So yeah.
True. But the other people in my area are charging about $1,300 for that same one. So part of me is like, am I just being a budget weight loss clinic or should I amp this up?
Honestly, if I was you, I would charge separately for the labs or let them use their insurance for it and just keep the same price.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know.
A lot of people include labs in their subscription-based, programs, and that's fine. It works. But honestly, I find that a lot of patients really they would rather use their insurance for the labs if they can. Or, if they don't want to, then you just allow them to pay cash for it, based on cash labs with like Access Medical Labs or whatever, through the Lead NP discount there or a local lab. If you give them that option, it really will increase your patient volume because, a lot of people are on a budget. And so you forcing them to pay you for lab work really can dissuade some people from not scheduling an appointment. But if you allow them to be a little bit more flexible and allow them to use their insurance for the blood work, then they get more value out of it. It makes it a little bit more affordable for them.
That's a really great point. I never thought about in there and change that. You're right.
Yeah, I just don't think it's right to force people that you must pay cash for the labs. I get it. It's an extra revenue source. I totally understand, but it's not your main revenue source. That's not where you're making that much money. You're making the money off the meds and the service. That's where the money is.
That's true. So if I'm not credentialed with insurance, I mean, I use Access and I use our discount, but how would you even let them use their own insurance for that through Access? Do you just send the lab order to LabCorp and then just give their insurance card?
No, don't fool with labs and Access. Don't do that. It's such a pain in the ass to go through Access Medical Labs and do insurance. You can, but it's so many headaches with it. So we really don't do that anymore. What I typically do is I just give them an order and just be like, just go to whatever lab you want. There's Quest right down the street, LabCorp's right there, local lab, whatever. They bill the insurance. They do everything. You just basically just hand them the order.
Okay. So it's more simple than I thought. And you have to add the diagnosis codes then, of course, if it's going through insurance.
Correct. And the more diagnosis codes, the better.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, just put as many diagnosis codes as you possibly can.
I can do that.
Fatigue, obesity, metabolic syndrome, hyperlipidemia, just whatever. Just start stacking them on there. That way the lab company's not calling you, hey, this lab's not covered. Can you give us another diagnosis code? Because then you're just doing busy work on the phone, doing that kind of crap. So just as many diagnoses as you can.
Okay. I can do that.
Yeah. I mean, don't make up shit, but I mean, if it's applicable, put it on there.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions about that or any other questions about, the operations here of your weight loss practice? I mean, it sounds like you're doing pretty good. I mean, there's probably a few tweaks you could do here and there and make a little bit more money, I'm sure.
I'm sure too. Really just, you kind of answered it already. I'm going to go back and watch the marketing class again and then the specific targeting. That's a great idea. I didn't even think about that from a 50-mile radius from that practice.
Yeah.
But that's great advice. And then also the labs, how to tweak that. That's perfect.
Let me ask you real quick. This just came to my mind. So, it sounds like you got a pretty decent patient base right now, and it's mostly word of mouth. Is there anything specific that you've noticed is kind of a theme with those people? Is there something that they're kind of all interested? Is there something that you can really identify as like a target demographic with these people?
Yes, there is. Actually, it's funny. I was just talking about this to my friend the other day. Yeah, I tend to have a ton of PCOS patients that do really well on semaglutide.
Okay, well then I think you need to pivot off that.
Can you target diagnosis codes on Facebook?
Nah, yeah, right. Yeah.
PCOS patients.
That'd be one hell of a HIPAA violation, I would think.
Yeah,
Facebook asks for your medical history so that
right.
people like you can then target their, that would be difficult, but there might be interests, within Facebook, Instagram, and, these social media platforms, because most of the time when you're advertising to them, you're advertising to them based off of an interest of some sort, right?
Mm.
Some sort of demographic information. And so there could be interests in PCOS awareness groups or PCOS advocacy, things like
Mhm.
that.
Good idea. I didn't even
Right.
think of that. Advocacy, like those kinds of groups. That's
Right. If they're
yeah,
interested in that, then chances are they probably have PCOS.
I would take a good guess. Yes.
Yeah. That, or if you can find some local PCOS groups, in the area, in your state, Facebook groups or whatever, you could get in there and start, just chatting with people. Don't give them medical advice, but just give them your opinion. You know what I mean? Just give them a little advice, little opinion. Give them some free value. And you'd be surprised how many people will just schedule an appointment with you just through that Facebook group.
Excellent advice. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I do that today.
that's free marketing. It just takes a little bit of work on your end to get in there and chit chat, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah, I have the time. I could do that. Yeah.
Sure, why not? Yeah, there's a lot of men's health providers that do that in a lot of these TRT, these testosterone replacement therapy Facebook groups and message boards and stuff like that. Like they get in there, they provide a lot of like free value, their opinion on, like someone will post their blood work or whatever, and then like they'll give them their opinion or whatever. And I know people who absolutely kill it in terms of patient acquisition doing that. So, I mean, if it works
Really?
for
And what
that, it'll
about
work for
like
this.
liability wise with that when you say that?
You're not giving them any specific advice. You're just giving them more or less your like, your opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I'm trying to think of any other way you could do that. I mean, I don't know if there's something that's specific to PCOS. Like, are there something that a lot of them suffer from that could be, an interest or, some sort of demographic or something? I mean, what is there something that they're all interested in? Are they all interested in losing weight and that kind of thing? I don't know.
I don't either. I mean, a common thing I hear is I always ask, what have you tried and failed as far as weight loss goes? And Weight Watchers is a big one, intermittent fasting.
Well,
But
there you
those
go.
people who are on those bandwagons, it takes them a long time, I feel like, to convert to thinking of, medication options as opposed to watching what they eat and exercising. Sometimes they're a little more difficult to obtain as a patient.
Sure, sure. That's just human nature.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think you should get in there and kind of play with the interest a little bit, but I would definitely speak to those patients though, with, PCOS, if you're really finding that that's kind of the niche you're kind of falling into, maybe have a little page on your website about it, that'll kind of help as well. So I would just pivot off that a little bit. I wouldn't make it your entire focus though. You could run some various ads, maybe to some sort of specific PCOS stuff. You can get into some PCOS groups, but also tailor some other stuff too, some other ads, some other Facebook groups for maybe just general weight loss, and kind of just keep an eye on the results of the ad. You'll see how many people are clicking on it and that kind of thing. And then as you start seeing more of these patients, you can begin asking them questions. How you heard from me? Where did you hear from me from? And you'll just kind of find trends, you know what I mean? And that'll kind of help guide your journey here, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, is there anything else that you would like to talk about?
I don't think so. No, felt nice to vent about the non-compete, and then thank you for all your answers.
Yeah, you're welcome. I don't know, it's stressful. Don't get me wrong. I mean, anytime, you're dealing with courts and getting sued or something like that, I mean, it's never a parade. I mean, it's stressful. So I just don't know if I would worry that much about it. I don't see how any of that could possibly be held up. I just don't. It doesn't make sense.
Yes, it's glad to hear. I'm glad to hear your opinion on that too. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel that way, but getting sued for some sort of reason, he thinks so. Nice to hear I'm not crazy.
Yeah, I don't think you are. And then, it's kind of like the attorneys that you've talked to too. It sounds like they're kind of on the same page. It sounds like they're not really all that concerned about it, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, the only thing they couldn't understand, they're like, if this is a family friend and you left on amicable terms, you would think that he would send like a cease and desist or some kind of demand letter, but instead he went and filed a lawsuit, which they both were like, so it means he's out there to play ball. So I hope you're ready. And they're like, but if he does take it too far, then you can always request attorney, lawyer fees, and court costs. So that's
I
a plus.
would. I would. Damn right. Anyways, like I said, I don't think I'd worry too much about it. I'd love to hear an update on that, 6 months from now. So we'll have to keep that in mind.
Absolutely
Yeah.
happy to
Yeah.
hear it.
Well, I like to end each episode with you asking me a question. Do you have any questions specifically for me?
Mm-hmm. What do you like to do in your free time? What kind of hobbies do you have?
I'm one of those people that kind of bounce from things. I always have. Like, when I was younger, it was skateboarding, and then it was fishing, and then it was hiking. And it was just like every 6 to 12 months, I just bounced to things. And I've noticed that I kind of do that as an adult too. Right now in particular, it's mostly just kind of hiking. 6 months ago, it was shooting guns. And then 6 months before that, it was arrowhead hunting. So like, it's kind of hard to just really nail that in. I mean, I am a fan of craft beer and, going to a brewery, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I would say that's probably something that I do. I don't say I do it too much, but I definitely enjoy it.
Awesome.
Yeah, mostly activity stuff though. Very active. I like working out. I work out every day and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you still find time for that stuff with all your, business endeavors.
You have to make time for it. And like, this is just a piece of advice for, really anyone listening. You really got to make time for exercise and stuff. Not only does it benefit your body, but I mean, it benefits your mind. It reduces your anxiety. It helps you think sharper. I mean, it really does give you an edge as an entrepreneur. No question about it. Like, you will always outperform someone who is overweight or obese. I mean, the benefits of physical exercise and maintaining a healthy weight. I mean, there's just so many benefits to the body and the mind. So you just got to make time for it. You just do. And you have to stick with it and be consistent. So if you're not, be doing that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of have to own a weight loss clinic, It would be bad business if I didn't.
Fair enough. Yeah. So keep that up. It helps you stay sharp. Yeah. And it helps you, have that image, so to speak. So, well, any other questions?
No, just wanted to take a moment and say, I've been a fan of yours for a really long time. And I think I speak on everybody listening, from everybody listening to this podcast, how helpful and insightful it is, and how awesome it is to have somebody on our side that, can uplift us and walk us through these difficult times. Because I had no idea how to start a business or what I was doing. And you taught me all that. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for getting me where I am. It's because of you that I'm here.
I love to hear that. Thank you. I really do. Yeah, thank you a lot. All right. Hey, listen, I appreciate it. And we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks. Bye. All right. I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation with Bridgette. That was a pretty interesting episode. I never really heard about clinical research, as a little side hustle for a nurse practitioner. So it's a pretty fascinating idea. The big thing here is the non-compete issue. I don't think that could be held up in court. Seems like there's just so many flaws and things that are argued in there. But in general, though, I have two trains of thought here with lawyers. Sometimes I think they're a complete waste of money, and other times they are definitely beneficial to have. So if you have a contract with an employer and it is 20 something pages long like hers, something like that typically needs to be reviewed. All right. Usually though, a lot of these times these contracts are, 4 or 5 pages. They're really nothing that a lawyer really needs to review. You can just take a look at them, and you should be able to understand what's important and what's not. Usually, in terms of the non-compete goes, the big thing that's important here is the radius of miles. Like how far away from that practice can you not really compete? And then the services that you're providing, right? What is it that you're providing? Is it truly competition to the employer? Because that's usually going to be argued, okay? In Bridgette's case, it doesn't sound like there's any kind of competition there. It's completely polar opposite services. So, that's really important as well. And also the term, like how long is it enforceable for? That's a big thing that you really need to consider as well. And then, what's your out? How do you get out of the contract? How can you terminate, employment? So those are really the big things that you need to consider with an employment contract. But if you're listening to this, hopefully you're starting your own business and you don't have to worry about it because you're going to be breaking free and not working for others anyways, right? So just keep that in mind. Lawyers do have their place, but a lot of times they are expensive and they don't really provide you that much value. So it's definitely a case-by-case basis. So keep that in mind. Anyways, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. It was a very interesting one. It was a lot different than the usual one. So I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye. Thank you for listening to the show. Quick legal disclaimer. The content of this podcast is meant for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as legal, financial, medical, regulatory, or practice-specific advice. For information pertaining to your specific legal, financial, medical, or practice-specific needs, please be sure to consult with your lawyer, CPA, medical director, and or your state's practice laws and the most up-to-date clinical guidelines. As always, do your due diligence when it comes to any information found online and in podcasts. The content in this podcast is copyrighted by Galaxy Medical Southwest 2022 and cannot be duplicated, rebroadcasted, or reproduced without our written permission.